Ever wonder why happiness seems so elusive? Here's a mind-blowing thought. From an evolutionary standpoint, happiness wasn't exactly a priority for survival. Nick Packard from Oxford University drops this truth bomb in his book, The Happiness Paradox. Our ancestors who survived weren't necessarily the happiest bunch. They were the ones constantly on edge, scanning the horizon for threats. Talk about an evolutionary plot twist, right? This explains why our brains are basically negativity magnets. Yale's latest research shows we process negative information 2.5 times faster than positive stuff. No wonder one criticism hits harder than 10 compliments. And a single piece of bad news can totally derail our day. But here's the good news. While our brains might be wired for worry, we're not stuck with the factory settings. Through years of research and real-world cases, I've discovered some game-changing strategies to reprogram our minds for happiness. Let's dive in. Finding your flow, the right kind of busy. First up, being busy. But there's a catch. We're talking about the right kind of busy. Harvard Business School dropped some serious knowledge bombs in 2023. Purposeful engagement boosts happiness by 47%, while mindless busy work actually tanks it by 28%. Let me tell you about Michael, because his story really brings this home. Michael was your typical Wall Street wizard, crunching numbers and churning out reports like there's no tomorrow. I thought keeping super busy would keep the blues away, he tells me, laughing now at his former self. So I packed my after-work schedule with random classes and activities. Spoiler alert, it totally backfired. Then came what he calls his plant epiphany. On a whim, he picked up some herbs for his apartment balcony. It sounds ridiculously simple, he admits, but watching those first shoots break through the soil gave me more joy than closing $1 million deal. Now my balcony's this urban jungle, and those 15 minutes of plant care every morning, better than my morning coffee, and that's saying something. Berkeley's neuroscience department backs this up. When we're engaged in activities we genuinely dig, our brains pump out dopamine like it's going out of style. But here's the $1 million question. How do you find your thing? Try this quick self-audit. What makes you lose track of time? What could you talk about for hours without checking your phone? What makes you smile without even realizing it?
Know you've been a good friend.
Rewiring your brain's spotlight. Here's where it gets really interesting. Martin Seligman, basically the godfather of positive psychology, found our brains are like smartphones stuck on front-facing camera mode, always focused on our flaws. Take Jennifer's story. She's this Broadway actor who absolutely crushed an audition. We're talking 99% perfect performance. But guess what kept her up that night? The one tiny line flub in the final scene. I couldn't stop replaying that moment, she told me, completely ignoring the director's earlier praise about bringing the character to life. Sound familiar? Stanford's research shows the average person has about 60,000 thoughts per day, and a whopping 65% lean negative. But here's the plot twist. We can flip this script. Harvard Med School's got the receipts. Consistent positivity practice literally rewires your neural pathways. The easiest way to start? I call it the 3-2-1 method. Spot 3 things that made you smile, note 2 wins, no matter how small. Thank 1 person who helped you. David, a tech entrepreneur I worked with, started this practice and his perspective shift was wild. At first I had to really hunt for the good stuff, he says. But after a month, I started noticing awesome things everywhere. My team's enthusiasm in meetings, the perfect foam on my latte, even the way sunlight hits my desk in the morning. Learning to be your own best friend. Let's talk about something that might sound a bit woo-woo, but is actually backed by hard science: self-compassion. Stanford research shows that beating yourself up doesn't actually improve performance. Shocking, I know. Meet Thomas, a Silicon Valley software engineer who used to treat every bug in his code like a personal failure. I thought being tough on myself would make me a better programmer, he says, rolling his eyes at his past self. Plot twist, it just gave me anxiety and actually made me more prone to mistakes. Through therapy, he learned what Princeton researchers call the best friend perspective, treating yourself with the same kindness you'd show a close friend. If my buddy messed up a code deployment, I'd never tell them they're a terrible programmer. So why was I saying that to myself? Research from UC Berkeley shows that people who practice self-compassion are 63% more likely to bounce back from setbacks, 41% more creative in problem-solving, and experience 47% less anxiety during challenging times. Here's a hot take. Maybe the problem isn't your motivation, it's your goals. Harvard Business Review found that people who break down big goals into bite-sized pieces are 3 times more likely to succeed than those going for the all-or-nothing approach. Sarah's weight loss journey is a perfect example. This Seattle-based mom initially set out to lose 40 pounds in 2 months. Spoiler alert, that didn't work out so great, she laughs. Then her trainer introduced her to the concept of micro-wins. Week 1, just track what you eat. Week 2, switch to smaller plates. Week 3, walk 10 minutes daily. Week 4, add 1 veggie to each meal. The weight came off slower, sure, but I actually enjoyed the process. Wild concept, right? Treating your body like the happiness machine it is. Here's some mind-blowing science for you. Cambridge University found that 30 minutes of exercise produces the same amount of serotonin as a standard dose of antidepressants. But don't worry, this isn't another just hit the gym lecture. Jason, a creative director in downtown Manhattan, tells it best. I used to think I was too busy to exercise, like Netflix while answering emails kind of busy. Then his doctor gave him what seemed like ridiculously simple advice. Walk for 15 minutes after work. I thought it was a joke at first, he admits. But here's the crazy part. Those 15 minutes became my sanity anchor. I started noticing things. The changing leaves in Central Park, the smell of pizza from that corner joint, random dogs who wanted to say hi. It sounds cheesy, but it changed everything. King's College London found that regular movement boosts sleep quality by 28%, increases creative problem solving by 31%, and reduces stress hormones by 33%. Real connections in a digital world. Here's a bombshell from Harvard's 75-year happiness study. Quality relationships trump everything else when it comes to long-term happiness. Yes, everything. Money, fame, success, you name it. Emily's story hits different here. As a remote software developer, she was living the digital nomad dream. Tons of online friends, constant social media interaction, the works. But I felt weirdly lonely, she admits. Like I had 1,000 plus LinkedIn connections, but nobody to grab coffee with. The game changer? Joining a local book club? I was nervous as hell walking in, she remembers. But there's something about face-to-face conversation that just hits different than emoji reactions, you know? MIT research backs this up, showing that genuine social connections add 7 years to your life expectancy, reduce cognitive decline by 43%, and lower stress levels more effectively than any meditation app. Finding your joy triggers. Last but definitely not least, finding what lights you up. You know that feeling when you're so into something you forget to check your phone for hours? That's what Hungarian psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi calls flow state, and it's happiness gold. Alex, a CPA by day, found his flow in the most unexpected place, baking sourdough bread. My friends thought I was having a midlife crisis, he laughs. But there's something almost magical about the whole process. The measuring, the kneading, the waiting, and when that perfect loaf comes out of the oven, better than landing a major client. MIT researchers found that regular engagement in flow activities reduces anxiety by 39%, increases overall life satisfaction by 31%, and improves work performance in unrelated areas. The bottom line. Here's the deal. Happiness isn't a destination. It's more like a skill. Think of it like playing an instrument or learning to code. Nobody's born a master, but everyone can get better with practice. Remember, not every day needs to be amazing. Negative emotions are part of the package, and small changes add up to big shifts. The cool thing about happiness is that you can start working on it right now. As my favorite psychology professor used to say, the best time to plant a happiness tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So, what's your first move going to be? Quick tip, start small. Pick one thing from this guide that resonated with you and try it for a week. Your future self will thank you. And that's a scientific fact.